Our next architect that we'll focus on is Frank Lloyd Wright, born in 1867, died in 1959. Frank Lloyd Wright was an American architect, designer, writer, and educator. He designed more than 1,000 structures over a creative period of 70 years. Wright believed in designing in harmony with humanity and the environment, a philosophy he called organic structure. Frank Lloyd Wright, architect and writer, an abundantly creative master of American architecture, his prairie-style homes became the basis of the 20th century residential design in the United States. Wright was the pioneer of what came to be called the Prairie School movement of architecture, and also developed the concept of the Usonian home in Broadacre City, his vision for urban planning in the United States. He also designed original and innovative offices, churches, schools, skyscrapers, hotels, museums, and other commercial projects. Wright designed interior elements included leaded glass, windows, floors, furniture, and even tableware were integrated into these structures. He wrote several books and numerous articles and was a popular lecturer in the United States and in Europe. Wright was recognized in 1999 by the American Institute of Architects as the greatest American architect of all time. In 2019, a selection of his work became listed World Heritage Sites as the 20th century architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright. Disclaimer: Wright was recognized in 1991 by the American Institute of Architects. One of Frank Lloyd Wright's most famous architectural design would happen to be Falling Water. Falling Water is a house designed by the architect Frank Lloyd Wright in 1935 in southwest Pennsylvania, Laurel Highlands, about 90 minutes from downtown Pittsburgh. The house was built over a waterfall on Bear Run in the Mill Run section of Stewart Township, Fayette County, Pennsylvania, located in the Laurel Highlands of Allegheny Mountains. The house was designed as a weekend home for Lillian and Edgar J. Kaufman, the owner of Kaufman's department store. After its completion, Time called Falling Water's Wright's house the most beautiful job and is listed among the Smithsonian's Life list of 28 places to see before you die. The house was designed and designated by a National Historic Landmark in 1966. In 1991, members of the American Institute of Architects named Falling Water the best all-time work of the American architecture, and in 2007, it was ranked 29th on the list of America's favorite architecture according to the AIA. The name Falling Water can be interpreted as a play on Frank Lloyd Wright's initials, FLW, or Falling Water. The house with 7 of other Wright constructions were inscribed as a World Heritage Site under the title The 20th Century Architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright in July 2019. The original estimated cost for building Falling Water was about $35,000. The final cost for the home and guest house was about $155,000, which included $75,000 for the house, $22,000 for the finishings and furnishings, $50,000 for the guest house, garage, and servants' quarters, and about $8,000 in architect fees. From 1938 through 1941, more than $22,000 was spent on the additional details and for changes in the hardware and lighting. The total cost of $155,000 adjusted for inflation is equivalent to about $2.8 million in 2020. The cost of the house's restoration in 2001 was estimated to be about $11.5 million, approximately $16.6 million in 2020. Falling Water stands as one of Wright's greatest masterpieces, both for its dynamism and for its integration with striking natural surroundings. Falling Water has been described as an architectural tour de force of Wright's organic architecture. Wright's passion for Japanese architecture was strongly reflected in the design of Falling Water, particularly in the importance of interpreting exterior and interior spaces, and the strong emphasis placed on harmony between man and nature. Contemporary Japanese architect Tado Ando has once said, "I think Wright learned the most important aspect of architecture, the treatment of space, from the Japanese architecture." The organically designed private residence was intended to be nature's retreat for its owners. The house is well known for its connection to the site. It's built on top of an active waterfall that flows beneath the house. The fireplace hearth in the living room integrates boulders found on site and upon which the house was built. A ledge rock which protrudes to the foot through the living room was left in place to link the outside with the inside. Wright had initially intended the ledge be cut flush with the floor, but this had one of the family's favorite sunning spots, so Kaufman suggested that it be left. The stone floors were waxed while the hearth is left plain, giving the impression of dry rocks protruding from the stream. Integration with the setting extends even to the small details. For example, where glass meets stone walls, no metal frame is used. Rather, the glass and its horizontal dividers were run into caulked recess in the stonework so that the stone walls appear uninterrupted by glazing. From the cantilevered living rooms, a stairway leads directly down to the stream below, and in connecting space which connects the main house with the guest and servants level, and natural springs drips water inside, which is channeled back out. Bedrooms are small, some with low ceilings, to encourage people outward toward the social areas, decks, and outdoors. Wright had initially planned to have the house blend into its natural surroundings in rural Pennsylvania. In doing so, he limited his palette to two colors, a light oak for the concrete and his signature Cherokee red for the steel. After Falling Water had deeded to the public, 3 carport bays were enclosed at the direction of Kaufman Jr. to be used by the museum visitors to view a presentation at the end of their guided tour of the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, to which the home was entrusted. Kaufman Jr. designed its interior himself to specifications found in other Falling Water interiors by Wright. After Kaufman Jr.'s father's death in 1955, Kaufman Jr. inherited Falling Water, continuing to use it as its weekend retreat until the early 1960s. Increasingly concerned with ensuring Falling Water's preservation, and following his father's wishes, he entrusted the home and approximately 1,500 acres of land to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy to tribute to his parents. He guided the organization's thinking about Falling Water's administration, care, and educational program, and was a frequent visitor as the guided tours began in 1964. Kaufman's partner, architect, and designer Paul Mahan also contributed to the legacy of Falling Water with a design for the visitor center completed in 1981. Today, the house attracts more than 160,000 visitors from around the world each year.